Oh, hello. Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by the fantastic, talented Mike Garner, who is a copywriter and storyteller that you'll be lucky to have in your lives. And I can't wait to put his business under the spotlight to share with you how you can do things differently in your life and to learn from yet another fantastic business owner. Welcome to the Business Spotlight, Mike.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Right. Let's get straight to it. I'm going to
Let's
grill
get
you.
straight to it. Serious answers. Serious face, serious answers.
Serious. No, not here. Not here. Not with me.
Well, I have to keep a veneer, don't I?
Yeah, well, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll
But you and me know
pretend. We can
differently. Yeah.
pretend.
You and me know differently. Yes.
Tell me, I'm dying to hear how you started or why you started your business.
It's a kind of a slightly convoluted story. I've been a freelancer for 27 years, which kind of freaks me out when I think about that sometimes because it's perilously close to 30. I originally started in 1996. Um, I was living in France. I was unemployed. I'd failed to become a teacher. I did because I trained to be a teacher. I did it's a competitive exam, if you like. I missed it by 0.4%. Thank God. And that was a bullet dodged, I can tell you. Um, and I thought, well, what do I do now? I was on subsistence money, basically, on benefits. I think, where do I go now? I thought, I know. I speak English, I speak French, I can be a translator. I saw an advert in the job centre of all places, which was a weird place to advertise for a translator. Um, and I did. I started on my kitchen table with a very ancient computer doing a medical translation, the one and only medical translation I've ever done. This is in the days before Alta Vista, let alone Google. Um, didn't even have the internet. If you want to do research, you went to the local university library. I had my Harrop's English dictionary, French English dictionary that I'd had from my A levels 20 years previously. And that was what I had. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, basically. Um, but I was delighted to get paid for something that I'd done because this is the first time I got paid outside of being salaried, if you like. And I thought, well, this is good. So I wrote off to the 174 translation agencies that were in Paris at the time because I had an old yellow pages with a CV, the last time I've ever used a CV. And some of them wrote back and some of them gave me work and paid me. I thought, well, this is good, because it was a world that I didn't know, if you like. I'd fallen into it almost out of desperation. Um, but the world of self-employment was not something that was when I was growing up, it was not something that people did, and ironically, both me and my brother have been self-employed for years. But it was, my father spent an entire life on the railways, 40 years on an entire career. The only self-employed person that was in my family was my maternal grandfather, who I didn't know because he died when I was 6 months old, and he was a painter and decorator. But apart from that, everybody, you get a good job with good pay and all that stuff. So this was a completely different, completely new thing. And for her entire life, till the day she died, practically, my mother, every time she called me, says, "Have you got any work?" Because I don't think either of my parents really understood what I did. Um, and then over the years, I kind of built up this translation thing. Um, and eventually I got bored with translating other people's bad French. Because, sorry, engineers, you write badly in any language. And I just morphed into copywriting because it was more creative. See, I've always wanted to be a writer, and more of that in a minute. But being a translator, and I always found it really difficult, but being a translator meant I could almost write by proxy. I was writing somebody else's stuff in a different language, if you like. Um, but but being a translator was also a kind of a learning curve, and it taught me how to write. Um, because I was interpreting another language, I think it taught me how to write in a way that I wouldn't have been able to learn had I not had the other language in there, I think. And I say that looking back now because I've become good. I say that with kind of the greatest confidence because at the beginning I was terrible. I haven't got any of the translations I did then anymore. They're on floppy disks somewhere at the bottom of some tip somewhere, some landfill. And just as well, they can stay there because I'll be embarrassed that people paid me for these things. But you know, you learn, and then like I say, I morphed into a copywriter over the last 10 years or so, perhaps. Um, and that's what I love doing now.
Super. Wow, that's some story.
That's how it basically got started. And then obviously it's
Yeah, cool. Cool. Tell me, let's bring you closer to the present.
yeah.
What do your clients say happens to them when they start working with you?
It's what I'd like. I'll just take the last kind of two or three, if you like. What I'm really interested in is, and it's almost this is what I'm doing a lot of at the moment, is before you get to the writing, it's all the where's the transformation? It's I've done a two or three recently, taking the little threads of all the things that they do, and it's brand messaging, basically. It's the setting out the what you're selling, who you're selling to, and what you bring to the table. It's positioning because there's no point in writing an email, writing a sales page, writing a website if you don't know what you're all about. And I think there's a lot of business owners say, "Oh, I'm a web designer," and they write stuff about web design. If you'd like a website, come to me. And to be frank, no one cares. If you don't have a strong message and a strong brand, if you don't stand out, if you don't say what you stand for and what you don't stand for, because there's all the stuff about ideal client. The whole ideal client scenario is not just about attracting the people you want to work with, it's dissuading the people you don't want to work with.
So true.
Because there's a I always like saying, you can't target everybody because that, if you target everybody, you'll get anybody, including the tire kickers, the time wasters, and the people who want to tell you how to do your job. Because people get freaked out about specializing because they say, well, if I niche down, I'm going to turn away business. Too damn right, you're going to turn away business. But the people that you niche down to are going to want to pay you more. So what's not to like?
So
Um,
true. Yeah,
so,
so
so
true.
just getting back to the question, it really is all about the transformation. It's because as business owners, we almost we are too close to our lives and our business, and we don't really know. Just for example, one thing I like working with is an entire timeline because we tend to a life timeline, if you like, because we tend to define ourselves by what we do now or what we've done in the last 2 or 3 years, let's say. But the stuff that you learned even as a kid is relevant to what you do now. I mean, I've got a degree in history, which means I can work out what's important, what's not important. I can interpret things. I can see trends and everything. I got my degree in 1981. 43 years ago. That's a long time. I was first exposed to languages when I was 6 or 7, probably before that, because I heard other people speaking different language. I thought, what's all this about? I mean, there was a stage when I thought I could hear them speaking French and German and Danish. Danish kids are a lot around. I'm thinking to myself, well, how come they're speaking these languages? They must think in English. This again, you don't know what you don't know. I thought it was sweet, me as a 9-year-old thinking that. But so everything is relevant. Everything you've done, but especially what you did at school, because that's when you're at peak learning. Um, so one of the first exercises I do would be to go through that exercise and then see trends, because there's always going to be transferable skills. It was put, and again, I didn't come up with this idea. It was suggested to me that I'm a copywriter now. I've been a translator. been a travel agent as well, but a business travel. So that's when I learned how to network in the late 80s and early 90s, and that degree in history. So all the things I can do now, I haven't just learned them in the last 5 years. It's a whole lifetime of learning stuff.
And this is what you help your clients to realize about their lives and their
Yeah,
strengths.
yeah. It's helping them to stand back. I mean, I was just working with a client recently who's a copywriter. She's also a VA, but she doesn't want to be a VA. But she's a professional house sitter, which is a wonderful life, I can tell you, because she's got no expenses really apart from her food. But she's also a travel copywriter. She writes for travel brands, and she didn't actually see, or couldn't. She needed someone else to tell her, if you like, that that is a central part of the brand. Because you want me to write about your thing in Barcelona. Well, I'll go to Barcelona and write about it. Because I can just pack my bag and go. Um, and also, I mean, we got on the call, and the first thing she said to me was, "I used to run a beauty parlor." Again, that's something completely different, different skills, but the skills that you learn in relatively random jobs and things are all transferable.
Yeah.
It's
You
not
would
because,
think. I mean, I have wrapped pallets in a warehouse, but yes, indeed.
well, yes, I mean, you
I'm
know,
only joking. I'm joking.
I did a milk round when I was 13, which I'm sure even in 1971 was illegal. I'm not sure I learned much. Oh, I may have done actually. I learned that it's
I
very
bet
cold.
you did. I bet you did. Yeah.
I learned that it's very cold carrying milk around in November at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Tell me, what is a common issue for your clients? What comes up? Is there something that comes up quite often?
I think most of the time it's clarity. It's they're not what they're doing isn't working because they're not clear about um, their goals, their target market, what they're actually offering. I mean, another thing that I call um, is is email CPR, because a lot of people have got email lists that either they don't email or are non-responsive, or they've got followings on social, um, and they don't actually transfer them over to the land that they own in email. And sometimes email just needs a little bit of zhuzhing up, and with that kind of going back to the original kind of brand messaging thing, get clear on what you're selling and who you're selling to and what you bring to the table, and then clean out the list of all the dead wood, because there's no point of having a list of 10,000 unengaged people when you can have 1,000 engaged people, because that's going to be far better, because you're going to sell more to them, and your email service provider is going to love you more because your open rates will be much better. So I think it all comes back to the same thing. They all lack clarity and vision.
Hmm, interesting.
And the sense of story as well, a sense of self. Because this is another one of my hobby horses, is that we grow up thinking, being told in the back, well, most of us anyway, and across all cultures, right across the world, don't brag. No one likes to show off. Stay in your lane. And then we all think that we've got nothing particular to say, or what we've done is not particularly remarkable, even if we have quite remarkable lives. There's a story that I've told you before, but I'll tell for the purposes of the interview, about Neil Gaiman. Um, Neil Gaiman who's no slouch himself as in terms of achieving things. He was at a meeting of the great and good sometime, full of Nobel Prize winners. They were talking about lifetime achievements and things, and he was thinking, "What the hell have I done?" Apart from selling a few million books, Neil, but apart, it didn't feel particularly significant. And he got talking to this little old man who was also called Neil, and they bonded over their shared first name. And this little old man was also saying the same thing. Done nothing special, I just went where I was told to go. Yeah, but that little old man, that little old Neil was Neil Armstrong. So if Neil Armstrong can feel this, that he's done nothing remarkable, I think there's hope for us all.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and I want to tell people that you have done remarkable things because I
yeah,
want people to. If I've got one mission in life, if I have a kind of a business mission statement, is that I truly believe that we all have a story to tell, and we all have an audience. It might be a small audience, but an audience that is interested. The trick is finding them.
yeah.
Um,
What part of your business do you enjoy the most then? Is it the storytelling? Is it like, is it?
I'll be honest with you, I kind of quite like most of it. I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on the days. Yeah, it's the sitting down and discussing with clients and dragging the stories out of them. Um, it's getting to without going down a rabbit hole. I'm a bit of a quiz nut. I in the 1970s I watched Ask the Family, and in the 1960s I watched Top of the Form for those old enough to remember. And that I mean I'll even sit and watch Pointless now. But the great thing about what I do is that I get to talk to lots of different people in lots of. I mean, I do specialize. Don't ask me to write about machine tools and CNC machines. Not interested. But there's still a wide variety of people that I do get to work with, and I'm one of these people that needs to know a little about a lot of things, and I just love finding stuff out. If I have a deathbed, I would like to be on my deathbed and find out something and say, oh, I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
I could die. Seriously, I could die happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
You know,
true.
if I'm honored that, if I get that kind of privilege,
Yeah.
if you like. So yeah, I just like the interaction. I mean, I love writing as well. But that's hopefully that's the stuff that does itself at the end. Because everything we put in place, it doesn't completely do itself, but because there is a certain art to it afterwards. But but all the kind of the research and discovery that we do gives the framework for the writing.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're on quicksand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think it's an essential thing to do. I mean, you kind of do the same thing as well because you're setting yeah, I think you're setting out a framework. You're
Mm.
setting out parameters to work with because otherwise you're just shooting spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah. I find like the thing is there's so many different ways to achieve an outcome, but
Yeah.
people need direction. People need a path. We all do. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
and both of us are wordsmiths. Both of us have history degrees. Both of us have traveled. You lived in France, I lived in Italy,
Yeah.
and New Zealand. But yeah, so and both of us are very passionate about email and owning your list. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that curiosity, it's funny. Yours came from copywriting. Mine came from working in a media role where I had
Mhm.
lots of different clients. I could be working on, you know, burgers one day and makeup the next. It's
Mm.
funny, isn't it? Like those target audiences are different, but they all have stories. Yeah, it's interesting.
Down to it, human beings are all the same.
Mm,
We're all pushed by the same buttons. Really, it's just the names and the faces change from one industry to another.
yeah.
But we all have the same. We all buy because we want something, not because we need it.
Yeah, largely. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even between two tins of beans, one appeals to you more than the other. Will you buy that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Generally,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
but for bigger ticket stuff, you buy with your heart and you justify with your brain, and that's right across everything.
So true.
We all have this fear of being kind of randomly, I'm thinking of random thoughts now, but we all have this fear of being left out. So that's why we join groups. That's why, it's a lot of what I do is human psychology. I should read, Cialdini's book on influence far more than I do, really, because it all comes down to those six or seven, well, it's seven now, isn't it? Principles of persuasion. We're in the persuasion business.
True. Well, actually, that leads me quite neatly onto my next question,
Yeah.
which is, in business, who inspires you?
Over the years, number of copywriters. I started just trying to think. What was the first copywriting books I read? It's a guy called John Simmons, and this is about 15, 20 years ago, perhaps. Yeah, almost 20 years ago. Who wrote a series of books about writing for business. He's still around, but he wrote, he's got a background in agencies and got a lot of Guinness campaigns and things like that. After that, it was the people at Copyblogger, Brian Clark and Sonia Simone, who introduced me to all the kind of the old direct response people, which is how I learned proper copywriting, back down to, went all the way back down to Claude Hopkins, John Caples, Eugene Schwartz, people like that, the old the madmen, basically, the actual madmen, the real Don Drapers, and of course David Ogilvy, who apparently Don Draper was based upon. More recently, I have to have a shout out for people that I know, Joanna Weeb, Copy Hackers, Kira Hug and Rob Marsh at Copywriter Club, and I've been in their mastermind. Ash Ambashay as well, who I'm going to get a plug for the book in a minute, but who is all those three are in my book, all about stories, and Dora Belgrave, who we both know.
Big fans, big fans.
Who is really she's the poster child for this kind of marketing.
Yeah, definitely.
Really, outside at the moment, I'm quite influenced by a lot of people on YouTube. I love me a bit of Diary of a CEO, I must admit. I'm starting to watch a lot of Tim Ferriss's interviews as well, but they are extremely long. There's one with Noah Kagan that I haven't. I've started that I haven't with Noah Kagan, who started AppSumo, that I haven't got all the way through. It's 4.5 hours long. You don't watch all that in one go.
No.
But that said, it's packed full of stuff.
Yeah.
Really is. And yeah, I suppose I like the thinkers because it's an advantage and a curse that I'm a bit of a thinker. But that's the kind of people I'm influenced at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It changes.
Ask me in 6 months' time, it'll be somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, because I think what I find really interesting about what you've told me about who inspires you is is always different. No matter who I talk to in the business spotlight, everyone is influenced by somebody else. And I just think that's so helpful for businesses. Something that's inspired me. It was just a throwaway comment in a training that I took, and I certainly attribute a lot of my growth to then joining that person's program. So I just think like those names that you've just kind of spoken about could really help somebody, maybe an up-and-coming copywriter or somebody who needs to learn more about copy. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And I would also just add to that as well, it's the importance of having coaches and mentors as well, because the whole thing of the self-made man thing is a myth. No one builds a business on their own. Even Richard Branson had a mentor in his early years, and as you should get on as many training programs as you possibly can, even if they cost you an arm and a leg, because most of the time you will get something from them and you will be changed by them.
Yeah, I agree. You have to, if you want to get to the next level, you have to get better. And the way you get
Yeah.
better is by investing.
It's by mixing with people who are better than you,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
leads me very nicely to imposter syndrome, because I have a thing about imposter syndrome. Something Stephen Bartlett says, which is quite true, he says he's always living on the edge of his comfort zone. Because imposter syndrome is your friend. It's a sign that you are challenging yourself. It's a sign you are getting better. The trick is not letting it overwhelm you.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying, I see you there. You are not going to take over. Let's go for it.
Yeah. That is great advice
Mm.
for anyone who's starting their business, isn't it? You know,
Oh, anyone's 20
is
years down the road, even me, I can tell you.
yeah. 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 Well, me too.
Yeah.
Me
We,
too.
we all we all get challenged by situations. We all come across people who are better than us. We all get into groups. You know, I can remember the first time I went to Joanna Weeb's group. I thought it was full of super successful copywriters. It's not. It was full of people that were just as freaked out as I was. So, you know, and you find that out very quickly, which is very reassuring, I can tell you.
Totally. Tell me, what advice would you have for someone who is starting their business and needs to find more clients? Like, how did you find clients?
Networking, getting in front of as many different people as possible. Again, going into groups full of people that are you perceive to be better than you as well, because you will not only get clients, you will get sources of referrals. People people tend to underestimate the what it's called in a lot of networking groups selling through the room. It's not about the people necessarily who are in the room, it's all the people they know. And it's very, don't dismiss anybody, um, with one or two exceptions, um, because you just don't know who they know. Um, I must have, I'm just starting to get into doing a little bit of cold email and things, um, because I've just had the nerve to do it more than anything else, because that's my imposter syndrome. Um, and most of my stuff I've got through the relationships that I've built, which as a starter, I mean, if you're a starting copywriter, I say go on the things like Upwork and Fiverr, pay your dues, basically, because it's not all. There are people that make six figures out of Upwork. You know, it's not all race to the bottom rates, because you can specify. There are filters. You know, you can filter out the ones that want to pay you $2 a word or less. Um, in fact, you can filter out the people who want to pay you by the word. Um, and I'd say also, and I know this is really trite to say, but it's really important, believe in yourself, believe in your value, because you have a skill that your client doesn't have. You know, it's the old thing about, the plumber who fixes the washer on your tap and charges you 50 quid, 50p for the 50p for the washer and £49.50 to know what to do with it. You know, because the client is hiring you, even as a beginner, as long as they're the ones that don't say to you, I do it myself, but the one that's hiring you doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the it's a power relationship, really. Even if you are a beginner, you have that skill that the person who's hiring you does not have.
Yeah. Or does not want to do it. So
Don't apologize for that.
equally important, equally
Mm.
important.
Yeah.
Tell me, what's the best advice that you have for getting your business to the next level, wherever that level is, whichever level you want to talk about? Because everybody is at a phase where they're
I think
trying to improve.
I well, I'd say get a mentor, join any kind of networking, mix with people better than yourself. Well, not no, that's the wrong word. Who have achieved more than you, who can teach you things. And there's another thing as well, and I say this as a certain person of a certain age. Well, I'm 65. Don't worry about learning from people that are half your age. You know, I've worked with people. I've got stepchildren older than them, and I there has been a certain amount of pride swallowed over the years, but now I don't care because I'm not really going to. Rarely am I going to find anybody older than me because I do know people that I was at school with who have now retired. And on the side note, I have no intention of retiring. You know, it's good enough for Dick Van Dyke, who is still going, who is at 98. So it's good enough for me.
Well, that
Because of
leads
the
me
creative, I think.
that leads me neatly to the next question, which is what's your dream for your business in the next 12 months?
It's a really difficult question, that. I just want to carry on doing what I'm doing, more of what I'm doing. I do have a secret desire to do a bit more YouTube, but I'm procrastinating over it. I need someone to crack the whip with that. I've got a 3 month plan, which is to kind of build more around the book that I wrote and more build kind of a brand around the stories. And once I get to there, it's not that I am putting it off, but I'm dividing my time as well because I can't do everything all at once.
No, nobody can. No,
Nobody can. So I'm trying to be a bit strategic about it.
yeah. Come on, give the book a plug. Show
Okay,
me
the
your
book of
book.
well, the book. I'll tell you just very briefly the background to the book. I've always wanted, well, I said to you earlier, I've always wanted to be a writer, um, but I could never get beyond the first paragraph almost. Being a copywriter, I can write about other people, not a problem, but writing about ourselves is a nightmare sometimes. That's why I work with copywriters on their stuff because they can't write about themselves because of all this stuff about, not showing off and not feeling significant. When I've been a copywriter for 10 years or so, and I was doing fine. I was just about paying the bills and everything, but I wasn't putting up any trees, as they say, And then 2020 happened. And apart from all the other stuff that happened in 2020, we put my mother in a home because she had Alzheimer's and she was a danger to herself at home. My wife had breast cancer. A week later, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. She's fine now, but January 2020 started off with a bang. Then lockdown happened. My mother had a really bad fall in the May, and she broke ribs on both sides. She broke a cheekbone. She had a bleed in the brain. So for people like normally constituted people like you and me, a bleed in the brain isn't great. 87, she'd never survived the surgery. So she came out of hospital for palliative care.
Oh,
She died on the 21st of June, which is the day after my wife's 60th birthday.
oh wow.
I say that because it gets better. Because when I was doing the probate, actually, I said to myself, okay, you're the wrong side of 60. Your mother was 26 when you were born. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? Yeah, time to get rid of all the imposter syndrome, time to get rid of the self-belief. So I worked with Margot Aaron, who's a wonderful copywriter who runs copywriting courses for Seth Godin. And Margot changed my life, to be quite frank. We did some work on my writing voice. And she got me writing. I wrote 20,000 words in 2 weeks, 3 weeks rather. Because she said to me, just because you write something down doesn't mean to say you have to publish it.
Yeah, true.
I just went whoosh.
Yeah.
And I got all the stuff. I mean, it was therapy for me.
Yeah.
I've got all the stuff that I'd never told anybody before. And some of the stuff will stay on my hard disk forever. Some of the stuff I thought, actually, it's not so bad. And the result was the beginning of this book, Stories That Matter, the everyday stories of extraordinary business people, which is just a book of stories about what it's like to run a business. It's 30% of it is mine. Then there's other people I've known from networking in it, and then people I met in the US. There's the copywriters, people like Joanna Wee, people like Ash Ambirge are in it. Laura Belgrave isn't, unfortunately, because I didn't get to know her better until I'd finished the book already. But Ash Ambirge, she's written some stuff up for the Back Burden compared to Humans of New York. So I thought I'll take that. It's just a book of stories about what's you can read all the Dragon's Den Shark Tank type books and you'll learn something from them.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, we can't relate to that kind of success. I wouldn't mind an extra couple of zeros, but I don't want to be a gazillionaire. What's important are the people like you and me trying to earn an honest living in our own little way, trying to make the world a better place. And that's what that book is all about. I'm going to make just a quick plug for the second book I haven't written yet. It's called How to Show Off, because this isn't a how-to. I'm writing a book called How to Show Off, a beginner's guide to speaking your truth without being a dick, which is all about getting over that imposter, about being that feeling of inadequacy. Because there is a way to come across as a kind of a quiet strength, if you like, quiet brilliance. You don't need to be, as I always say, the ones with the biggest gobs have the least to say. There's a way of getting it out there that's she's largely based on how to win friends and influence people. Basically, not being a dick.
I love it. Actually, I need to connect you with a photographer, Alban McGuinness, and her whole thing is showing up is not showing off. And so,
oh yes, it's a conversation we can certainly have.
I certainly think I'm going to have to connect you guys. Tell me how. So, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And as we finish up today, tell people how can they work with you. And I'm going to share the links.
I've got the best way to kind of connect with me is probably on LinkedIn. I have a kind of a variety of things. I've got the email. I write testimonials as well. My website is a work in progress at the moment, but that's at storiesthatmatter.co. If you want, I think the best thing is LinkedIn. It's we're going to put the link in. It's Mike Garner, copywriter. Because that's the best way just to kind of connect and send me a message, and we can jump on a call and then see where we go from there.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for featuring on the Business Spotlight.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate it, Mike.
As usual with our conversations.
Thanks. Bye.